Ahead on NewsWatch, warning North Korea why officials say a preemptive military strike against the country is on the table. Plus, Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch expected to face tough questions as he begins Senate approval today. See what's ahead as he vies for a seat on the highest court in the land. Then,
I think that's what God came to do, is to touch us. I think the touch is just the beginning of that, of a love story.
exploring the power of touch, will break down new research that shows its healing benefits. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Today, FBI Director James Comey and NSA Director Michael Rogers will testify at a hearing on Capitol Hill about Russian interference into the U.S. presidential election. Comey is also expected to set the record straight about President Trump's claims the Obama administration tapped Trump Tower during the presidential campaign. It is anticipated Comey will officially undercut President Trump's accusations. House Majority Leader Paul Ryan says Republicans are listening to the American people when it comes to the GOP health care bill. He says there must be give and take to pass the bill, and the president is helping with that.
The reason I feel so good about this is because the president has become a great closer. He is the one who has helped to negotiate changes to this bill with members from all over our caucus. I call it getting the sweet spot. You've got to get 218 Republicans who come from all different walks of life to come together to agree on the best possible plan to repeal and replace Obamacare.
Ryan says he and the president, as well as fellow Republicans, want to pass this bill and make good on their promise to the American people to repeal and replace Obamacare. The House votes on it Thursday. The United States says a preemptive military strike against North Korea is on the table. The warning comes as the regime continues to build more powerful missiles. Over the weekend, the communist country tested a new rocket engine thrust system. George Thomas has the details.
North Korea's official news agency called it another miracle and said this latest test was a great event of historic significance for the country's space program. Judging from these pictures released by the government, the communist regime's dictator Kim Jong-un was apparently all smiles as he watched his generals over the weekend launch a new high-thrust rocket engine at the Sohae launch station. Kim was surrounded by ecstatic soldiers after the test, some of whom appeared to be weeping, others jumping for joy, and one general even got a piggy bag from the dictator. Kim called the test the March 18th Revolution, claiming that it marked a huge development for the country's satellite program, which he insists is for peaceful purposes. The U.S. dismisses that claim, saying it believes North Korea is working to develop nuclear warhead missiles that could reach the United States. The engine test comes after the regime conducted 5 nuclear tests and a series of missile launches in defiance of the United Nations. Experts say this latest test is an ominous sign of the North's intercontinental ballistic missile ambitions.
We evaluate that North Korea has achieved a significant advancement in enhancing engine capability through this engine test.
President Trump blasted the dictator, tweeting on Friday that North Korea is behaving very badly. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who is traveling in Asia, said America's attitude toward North Korea has changed.
Let me be very clear. The policy of strategic patience has ended.
Tillerson has said the North has nothing to fear from the U.S., but he also says diplomacy has failed. He's warned that the U.S. would consider a preemptive military strike against the regime and has called on China to do more to rein in its North Korean ally. George Thomas, CBN News.
President Trump's Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch begins the formal Senate approval process today, meaning all of his friendly meetings on Capitol Hill will now give way to tough questions and bitter attacks from opponents. Abigail Robertson brings us the scoop on what to expect from this week's hearings.
That you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Preparing for a Senate showdown takes focus, intense research, and looking your best. Judge Neil Gorsuch has met with more than 70 senators, brushed up on his own past legal opinions, and practiced for an anticipated grilling from probing senators. All this for a potential lifelong seat on the highest court in the land.
Senator McConnell has promised to get this nomination done before the Easter recess.
Gorsuch will likely be confirmed, although it could be an unprecedented journey to the bench. Judge Gorsuch faces 3 to 4 days of hearings in the Judiciary Committee before moving to the full Senate, where Republicans will need to find at least 8 Democrats to allow the nomination to go forward for a final vote, or they may have to consider the nuclear option. That last resort would mean changing Senate rules to make any filibuster of Gorsuch impossible. Then, only 51 votes would be needed for confirmation. While rule changes can be approved with a simple majority vote, many senators don't like the idea because both sides understand the importance of the filibuster to the minority party.
I think the nuclear option is the wrong thing to use.
In 2013, then Senate Democratic leader Harry Reid went nuclear to prevent filibusters on cabinet nominees and lower court judges.
I think Harry Reid made a horrible mistake.
A move opposed by many Democratic senators like Joe Manchin and current leader Charles Schumer.
This is the most unique body in the world, the United States Senate. It's the most deliberative body because basically the minority has a strong position. It's not, in a simple majority, 51, that means the minority is discounted completely. Well, guess what? The Republicans were in a minority before, they're in a majority today. The Democrats have been in a majority, they're in a minority. That changes. So anybody that really respects this institution and understands the institution and the purpose of it, this is the cooling part. This is basically the deliberative part of governing, which makes us unique.
Republicans will pursue Manchin and 9 other senators like him because they face re-election in states won by President Trump. CBN News chief political correspondent David Brody believes Democrats will avoid a filibuster this time and look ahead to the next fight.
I don't expect Democrats to filibuster this nomination. It would be surprising to me, and here's why. I believe they'll save their powder, their ammunition, if you will, for the big fight coming next, which will be over Anthony Kennedy or whoever retires next. Most likely it'll be Anthony Kennedy, and I think that's where they'll put up the big fight because that would be, in essence, the big swing vote on the court.
Many evangelical leaders are excited that President Trump followed through on a pledge to appoint a pro-life justice.
They see this as President Trump fulfilling a campaign promise that he made. And that was something that really unified a lot of evangelicals that may have had some concerns about Trump, the candidate. Neil Gorsuch is going to fill the shoes of Justice Antonin Scalia. And there is no better judge in this country that I can see that would do a better job of fulfilling that legacy.
The American Bar Association unanimously gave Gorsuch its highest possible rating. We'll soon see if the Senate agrees. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
You purchase a piece of property solely as an investment, then it comes time to sell it, and the government says you can't because it's changed the law. Sound impossible, but that's what happened to the Murr family and of Minnesota and Wisconsin. As Paul Strand reports they've now fought all the way to the Supreme Court for the all-American right to sell their own property.
The Murr clan bought this property along the St. Croix River back in the 1960s and built a dream vacation home for the family to enjoy across the decades. And so they could afford to rebuild or redo that house way down the years, they bought the lot next door as an investment property. Donna Murr says Wisconsin always treated the property like 2 lots, sending the Murrs separate property tax bills.
We got 2 tax statements every year.
But in 2004, when the Klan tried to sell the investment lot, Wisconsin and St. Croix County said they'd changed the way they looked at the properties, and the Murrs could only sell the investment lot if they sold the lot with their vacation home on it. The 2 were now considered one.
We couldn't believe it. It didn't seem real at the time. It's like somebody's joking. How can this be? I've used the word flabbergasted.
She says it shook their faith in government.
It's to protect and to be there for you, and to have them do the opposite where you felt like they were stealing from you and taking away your rights versus helping to protect them. It felt very un-American.
Murr is now in Washington as the U.S. Supreme Court takes up her case because the Klan's plans have been frozen in place for 13 years.
Financially, to move forward with the improvements to the cabin depended on our ability to sell the lot next door.
A lot of landowners might own more than 1 lot.
When government takes your property or renders part of it useless to you, it's supposed to pay you just compensation. The Murrs have been offered nothing. The Pacific Legal Foundation represents the Murr family, and attorney Jim Burling is offended by what Wisconsin's basically saying.
Too bad. We don't have to pay you a dime for what we've taken, and that's just wrong.
It is about the rights of all Americans, and if people realize that what has happened to our family could happen to them, or it might be happening and they don't even realize, just like in our case, we didn't know our rights were being violated until we actually wanted to exercise our right. So it could have an impact nationwide.
So for the Murr clan, this is certainly painful because of the money and property involved, but also because it feels like their own government is bullying, even stealing from them. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the Supreme Court.
Despite criticism from faith leaders, Disney's live-action Beauty and the Beast earned $170 million this weekend, making it the highest opening ever for a PG film. The movie came under fire from members of the faith community after the director revealed it would feature a, quote, exclusively gay moment. Some parents decided to boycott the film, while others told CBN News they would use it as a teachable moment.
It's just a bad idea. I mean, I think it encourages everyone to be open, but I think the world has desensitized us, so it makes parents educate them more on the difference. Yes. But then there's a lot of education that we have to do afterwards. So, I mean, we're not going to ban it because it's a Disney thing, but it's harder to raise kids nowadays. I would say that.
That petition to boycott Beauty and the Beast garnered more than 130,000 signatures. Coming up, good health and physical touch. Why doctors say the two go hand in hand will break down new research. It is sure to make you want to reach out and touch someone. Touch can be a powerful thing, especially for preemies, babies who are born before full term. Typically, they can't be held by their parents a lot due to neonatal intensive care. But a new study suggests they need the interaction to help with brain activity and how they process their senses. It's important because premature babies can have decreased brain response after birth. So the study stresses the importance of babies experiencing positive touch, like cuddling, and not just painful ones, like needle sticks and medical procedures. Decades of research finds that human touch is essential for babies to develop and thrive, but more recent research shows that it's just as vital for adults as it is for newborns. Caitlin Berg has more on the science behind the power of touch.
Thursday night Bible study in Skagit County, Washington sounds like your normal men's prayer meeting. The laying of hands isn't unusual, but it took these men some time to be comfortable receiving God's love through touch. Chris Hoke met most of them as chaplain of the county jail.
In the jail, guys don't touch. And on the streets they wouldn't. I think the only place they'd have it is just an over-sexualized sense of touch with girlfriends.
Julio was one of those inmates.
A lot of times there's guys that they're scared of being touched because they need to put up a front with that tough guy role. And when some stranger comes in and tells you he loves you and he gives you a hug, it's something you're not used to. It's a feeling that you feel that somebody cares about you.
It was surprising how much guys wanted a hug right when they came through that door. Just boom, they'd want a hug. And some guys would say, sometimes I come just to get my fix. I saw how much there's a hunger there for it, if it's healthy.
If you want to hold it.
So why this hunger for touch? According to neuroscientists, our brains are programmed for touch.
There is a whole array of compounds that play together in order to allow touch and social interactions to affect our brain. This is the hypothalamus right here.
The hypothalamus area of the brain produces oxytocin, which is released upon positive touch. That compound can reduce fear and increase trust. For many of these men, positive touch played a huge role in their healing and growth. But then one day the jail instituted a no-contact rule. Inmates were allowed only what they called a business handshake, and chaplains were told to reject anything else. How did that loss of touch start to affect the inmates?
At first, to me, it seemed like the guys almost became more violent. It seemed to me, especially in those first few weeks, that more fights were breaking out, as if they were swinging for some kind of contact.
Dr. Aravich is not surprised at this reaction.
The lack of touching causes all kinds of changes in brain development and brain organization.
In the mid-1900s, Dr. Harry Harlow found this in experiments where he deprived monkeys of physical contact from birth. The results were heartbreaking.
If you take a social creature and isolate it and look at a part of the brain called the hippocampal formation, psychosocial deprivation actually causes a physical injury to that particular part of the brain. Our brains were designed to be with other brains.
Research shows the first sense developed in the womb is touch, as early as 8 weeks, highlighting the need for proper touch from day one. At Centera Princess Anne Hospital in Virginia Beach, new mother Rebecca chose to participate in an increasingly popular practice called skin to skin.
For skin to skin, immediately after birth, we try to have the baby go directly onto the mom's abdomen, so the mom immediately gets to hold and feel her baby.
40 years of research shows this contact leads to many benefits for babies and their mothers.
How did it feel when you first got to hold him skin to skin?
It was an indescribable feeling. As soon as they put him skin to skin, that bond was there.
That secure bond gives baby Bryce a foundation that can help him throughout life, from academics to sports.
In sports, trust between teammates is critical. So if positive touch creates trust, how could that help a team's performance? To find the answer, scientists left the lab and headed to the basketball court.
Researchers at the University of California at Berkeley studied basketball teams over a complete season. After determining 12 types of positive touch between teammates during gameplay, they detailed the occurrence and duration of each one. Their results showed the touchier players in teams actually performed better than their counterparts. At the Bible study, these former inmates, who could only rely on themselves in prison, now learn to count on others. Chaplain Chris Hope credits that to Jesus and how he's touched these men's lives.
I think that's what God came to do, is to touch us. Jesus crossed such a span between us so that we could be one. And so I think the touch is just the beginning of that, of a love story.
I feel like there's intimacy with Jesus when two men are touching each other and praying for each other. You can feel the energy when someone is putting their hands on you, praying for you. You can feel the power of Christ going through that person's hands and going into your body.
Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Up next, restoration in the Holy Land, an exclusive look at renovations to the church in Jerusalem, where many believe Jesus was buried and raised from the dead. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is considered one of the holiest sites in Jerusalem's Old City. Many believe it marks the place where Jesus Christ was buried and where he rose from the dead. CBN News got a rare behind-the-scenes look at a long overdue restoration going on inside the church. Here's CBN News' Chris Mitchell.
It's called the Edicule, a structure built over what many believe is the burial place of Jesus. After years of neglect, it's getting a facelift.
The Holy Rock is preserved, and this is a great result of this phase of the project.
Professor Antonia Morapoulou oversees the project.
Of course, now we are going with bolts and anchors, titanium anchors, to readjust the marble slabs upon some mortar and concrete. That means we are going to assure the structural integrity through this intervention.
National Geographic first documented the restoration last year for a television special.
This is the marble slab that was removed for the first time in more than 200 years. Beneath that, they found a slab from the time of the Crusaders, and underneath that, a tomb from the 1st century that many believe was the tomb of Jesus.
While many consider the Church of the Holy Sepulchre the site where Jesus was buried and rose again, others believe the resurrection took place at the Garden Tomb not far away. Whichever site is authentic, the work is preserving the church for years to come.
We had, of course, to open the Holy Tomb in order to insulate it from the grouts and to protect it.
This number, S3E14, that means S3E14. This is from this place of the monument.
The restoration is like putting a puzzle together. Conservator Theodoros Mavridis explained how they reconstruct the marble slabs surrounding the edicule.
We open holes, we put titanium rods between the two pieces. We are putting the adhesive on the surface inside. we just joining the pieces together, like this. Okay, and then we have to put the piece vertically, so that the weight of the above to give the pressure and the stability to put the pieces together in a perfect position.
For those working on the project, it's not a job, but a joy.
What were your feelings when the tomb was opened?
Great feelings. We were feeling that working on the tomb of Christ, we were not in just a monument. It's the message of resurrection, is the hope and the praise of millions of people. You feel when you are there, you are in the most alive place in the world.
For my mother or my grandmother, they feel very proud of me. I feel very happy every day to be here. And when the project is finished, then I will be more happy than ever in my life.
The project is expected to be completed by Easter. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem's Old City.
My favorite line, it is not a job, it is a joy. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Bible teacher Priscilla Shire is returning to the big screen.
I'm a spiritual person. I'm not hot, but I'm not cold either.
Following her War Room acting debut, Shire joins Dennis Quaid, Cloris Leachman, and Trace Atkins. And I can only imagine the film based on the popular song by Mercy Me Band member Bart Millard.
Bart Millard really made a decision to discover his gift because he had a strong teacher who said, "You're going to do it, because I see something in you that you do not see in yourself." And so I could not pass up the opportunity to be able to just play that. It's a little small part, but I think it's a pivotal part to this story that led to a song that has blessed people the world over.
The film wrapped production in October and will be in theaters in spring of 2018. Now, for the latest and uplifting entertainment news, be sure to check out my show, Studio 5. You can see it online every Wednesday at 5 by going to cbn.com/Studio 5. All right, now it is time for your Monday motivation, and here's a thought to consider. Today may be the day to move forward, and in doing so, don't try to patch your past into your future. God is ready to do a new thing. He's simply looking for you to trust Him. And today, as we start a new season of spring forward into the new God wants to do. With that word, make this a marvelous Monday and a wonderful week. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to seeing you next time.